back, everybody, to the Johnny Drinks podcast. I'm your co-host, Johnny. I'm here with...
This is John.
And this is a special podcast for two reasons. Number one, we have a guest.
Well, Diana.
Okay, that's my sister, Diana Rondi. The other reason why this is a very special podcast is this is the first... Everybody get ready to clap. The first sponsored podcast. Round of applause, people.
Oh.
So the sponsor of this podcast is Update Energy, guys. This is energy without caffeine. Update is the first and only energy drink to utilize paraxanthine, a revolutionary new energy source that is isolated and refined from the caffeine molecule. Now, I'm no scientist, but from my knowledge, this is what I know. They extracted this paraxanthine, which is the component of caffeine that makes you feel energized, focused, confident, and it leaves the components of caffeine that make you feel groggy, the crash, the anxiety, what else to make you feel like the lack of sleep, stuff like that. So you can drink these. I mean, I've drank 3 in a day and you feel no jitters, you feel no problem falling asleep. So we're big fans. If you guys want to check it out, we're going to leave a link in our YouTube bio there, just drinkupdate.com. So cheers to them and cheers again to the first sponsor.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah. So today, again, we're having Diana on the podcast because we're talking about working with family. And now I think this is a little bit of a different dynamic because I put quotation marks around work. Some people may not think this is traditional work, you know, making TikToks. And from the vantage point of people that don't really know what we do, that's pretty much what they would assume, that they show up, they make a 30-second video, they get millions of views, they make whatever, and they move on with their days. But right. For you guys that want a little bit of an inside scoop, there is a lot that goes on here. If you want it to be, right? I always say that content creation is sort of like an Easter egg hunt, and you got to go and find the eggs. If you want to sit around, make some viral videos and do nothing with it, you could, and you'd be pretty happy with that. But if you want to go and really establish and build a brand and make a tremendous amount of money and have a huge impact, you have to go search and find these opportunities, which I think is the hard part, especially when you're working with family members because you have different opinions and you guys are always trying to figure out why you went viral. So let's get into, I guess I want to ask Diana the questions here. You work, now for those that don't know, Diana is a brand manager, content creator for not only us, but for other brands. So she'll go, let's take Update Energy for an example. She'll make what's called UGC content for them, user-generated content that sits on their page. So she'll identify and figure out what the brand's story is trying to become. She fills that role, she makes the content, and she posts it for their page. So she has to work with people like Update. She also has to work with people like Johnny Drinks. How have you felt the experience has been working with us?
Well, when we first started, it was, I feel like, very different than what it is now. Because I was still in college. And you asked me to just help out with, what was it, management over the Instagram page? It wasn't even at that time. We were just repurposing your TikTok content on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest. And that was like my role and that was it. Yeah. But there wasn't much engagement with like your community because it wasn't that big at the time. But now I feel like it's a lot bigger than what it was. So it's been great.
It's evolved. I mean, it's to the point it's now a business.
And I feel like I've grown like with you guys to see it, like how it started and where it is now. And I could use that and apply it to the brands that I'm working with now.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like a joke in the beginning. We were like, oh, Diana's going to work for us. And it was just posting, like you said, reposting our content. What do you think your biggest, if you had to pinpoint one thing that you do really, really well for the Johnny Drinks team, what would that be? Like, what is your most value that you provide us?
Consistency.
Of what?
Posting and keeping up with posting. Except when I miss a post, like every once in a while, but that's like rare. I post 7 times a week on all platforms.
It's a lot.
But community management, I feel like I'm constantly responding back to comments, DMs, referring. If someone is reaching out to me and needs to get in touch with you, I get to the message first before you do.
Correct.
Send it to you, and then we go from there.
Dad, what do you think her biggest role is?
Well, I think, to just back up 1 second, we're talking about now, business and working with family in a family business, right? So this business, which you touched on in the intro, is very different today than it was when we first started 3 years ago. And when we started 3 years ago, it really wasn't truly a business. It was just putting some videos together, having some fun, and it kind of organically grew from there. Because it's a business, you need certain things to maintain the integrity of a business and the consistency and turn out what is at the end of the day a product. So your role has been one that's been pretty important. You're consistent. Like you said, you take what video content we have and make and chop it up sometimes, edit it, or take those pieces and repurpose them out, right? I mean, so that's very important so that we're continually in front of our audience and that people get to see us in some smaller doses from time to time. But when we speak about the part of, well, what is it to work with family in a business? I mean, that's where it might be, I guess, more challenging than some people might understand because, you know, here I am a father and I have a son and a daughter and they already have to answer to me in some respects. And that's hard. That has to be really difficult being the child of, let's say, a parent, again, that has to answer to them in more than one respect. So how are you finding it balancing out the two? Because, you know, I know what my vantage point is of this, but what's your take on it? And I ask that to both you, Diana, what's your take on that?
My take on working with you guys?
Yeah, what's it like working with a sibling and working with your father?
Well, I feel like it's easy because I don't need to, for example, text you in a grammatical correct way. I could just shoot John a text and say, this needs to be answered, whatever it is. That's the good part about it. Opposed to like if I was texting update, I wouldn't be like, whatever. I would say something more like legit with a hi, exclamation mark, you know, be very
it's more comfortable.
Professional.
So is it more comfortable than
Yes.
working with, okay.
It's very comfortable.
Which is, I mean, I think that's sometimes where the blurred lines do get, you don't get in trouble, but it creates a little more of a hostile environment, I guess you could say, because everybody is very honest with each other here, which is a good thing, but some things are probably left better unsaid. Things that you wouldn't say to a regular coworker or a regular boss, you know? So, but I think on the bright side, there are things that just get hashed out very quickly, right? If you have a problem with somebody and it's your coworker, and I've never really had a coworker, but it may take a couple weeks for you to actually say it, or maybe you're very passive aggressive, or maybe you're talking shit behind their back. There's none of that here. You know, like we'll say it to each other's faces. The problem is the problem. We present it to all three of us, or maybe there's other people involved, and then we hash it out. We get over it. We move on. Yeah. So I think you'll learn a lot about yourself when you work with family, because people outside in the real world are liars, and they'll say one thing to your face and then again say something else to other people.
Well, there's an environment that does exist in, you know, let's say that corporate America world where you may have a difference with somebody and you may not even know it. And that person's in some other space or room in the coffee break room and saying how they didn't like what you said or how you said it. And that manifests and grows into something maybe bigger than what your intentions were. And so, yeah, the balance of what we have is if there is an issue, we're going to talk about it. If there's a subject that is sensitive, it turns into a disagreement or an argument really fast. And personally, I don't know that there's an apology that's always necessary, but there is a different takeaway, right? So each time there's something that does occur, it's an opportunity, I think, to reflect on it and make it better. And, you know, from my vantage point as the father, it's hard to separate. Am I a leader? I'd like to think so, but I'm a parent and I'm a father more than I am that to you guys, because you've heard this voice over and over and over again.
Well, I don't think it's one is more than the other. One is permanent, one isn't. You know what I mean? Like if there was a sacrifice of, do we continue with Johnny Drinks or do we continue being your kids? We would have to give up the Johnny Drinks. But if we realize that, like, hey, Johnny Drinks is really, really sacrificing our relationship as a healthy family, it doesn't matter how much impact, how much money we're making here, we have to stop it. Right? Like that, there's nothing worth more than I think the love of your family. Right. So I think what we've done really well is that we've identified, or maybe what I've done is I've figured out, instead of trying to change you two, I've just identified like who you guys really are. And we've worked with, I guess, all three of us, our pros and our cons. Yeah. So for example, if we know we are more susceptible to butt heads because we have this
similarity
that we both think we're right at all times. And maybe sometimes one person can only be right. So I could say the sky is green. He says, no, it's blue, just for the sake of the argument. So what we've identified coping mechanisms would be maybe me going through Diana to then go back to dad. And then we never really have to, it's like the, it's
I'm the
partition
mediator
between us.
I'm the mediator.
Oh, is that what you're doing?
That's what I was going to say is like, I think Diana's biggest role, look, I can get a monkey to click post on repost and stuff. Not saying your role isn't important, but I think your biggest job is keeping us in line and making sure that we stay on task and making sure that, hey, this is what you guys should be doing. These are the cocktails you guys should be making. So it's so much more than just pressing post and staying on top of this stuff. It really is when we are in a heated conversation saying, can we stop here? Can we take a step back, take a deep breath and realize what we have to do?
Yeah, listen, you can be a family-owned pizzeria and you will experience the exact same growing pains and struggles. The difference is, one of the things I'm going to say is the difference.
I want to hear the difference.
If I own the pizzeria,
that's good.
It's my business.
Correct.
And you're working for me in the business. Now, this is different because this is really your business first. And I find my role in it as the show of the business, right?
The talent.
And that's, again, this is a very different misnomer of a place when you talk about us as a family business. So there's a lot of people that have worked with family members.
Right.
Joe, we gotta stop the police and sirens out there.
Call them.
Today's a busy day in Jersey City.
I can't even hear it. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
So, I looked at him and smiled before.
Can you hear that? Yeah. Sorry. So, as a true family business, there's so many things that will run common threads to what we experience, and yet what trumps all of it is, well, who started the business?
And I think that's what I could assume if we owned a pizzeria and it was Johnny's Pizzeria, you've been doing it for 30 years. And I came up one day at 27, I said, look, Dad, we should be doing it this way. I could be very right. Mm-hmm. You could always hang your hat on, well, who started this? And I would have to succumb and say, you're right. It was you.
Right.
The unfortunate part for you is you can't do that to me right now.
No. And
maybe not unfortunate, but it's just the reality of it's hard for you because if you wanted to look at this like dichotomy, the business, if you wanted to put roles on it, you would be talent. I guess I would be like director and organizer. And then Diana is more of like
manager.
I was going to say assistant.
Well,
manager's fine. Manager works.
Coordinator.
Right. So if you took out the family aspect of this, it actually it would be a little more confusing as to why we're even having some of the conversations we're having.
Yeah. You know what? This is, as an industry, right? Content creation, social media, digital advertising. This is so young and new that you may not see it because you guys are so close to it. But from my vantage point and being 57 years old, there are a lot of people struggling, trying to find out how to do this, making it a business, right? They could be complete strangers and just know they have one thing in common, that they like the social media place, they like the content creation place, and they love the idea of being self-employed, and yet they bang heads when the cameras go off the same way we have disagreements and we get frustrated, right? That's normal. But what's yet to come is, as you guys, meaning the age demographic, mature through this and find stress differently. Right now, your stress is maybe your stress is about, well, how many views and where's my next brand deal coming from, and how do I get people to like me or still follow me? Okay, those are real things, but it's going to change.
Well, I was going to say it's actually not real things, and that's like the weird part of.
Well, those are real things you maybe
right?
For you thinking about that, and you thinking about. I don't think about that.
Yeah, it's like a fake. If we never did this, I would never worry about views because I don't have views. It's like I'm not even close to comparing myself to like Tim Tebow and Swamp Kings. But did you see Swamp Kings?
Yeah, absolutely.
So their last year, the Florida Gators, their documentary is awesome. It's about like the 05 to 010 or 09 team. And they won at 06, they won 08, they lost 07, and they lost 09. But 09, they were undefeated. And they said it was not fun at all. They had such a fear of losing that winning just felt like, phew, thank God we skated by that week.
Right.
So much so that when they were undefeated against Alabama, Alabama played with a chip on their shoulder because just lost them last year. Florida didn't almost like want to be out there. And I think that's where, like, as content creators, you feel a similar pressure of like going viral. Right. It's like, oh man, 1 million views, thank God. Right. Now I saved my reputation. Whereas like people don't give a shit, number one, and you should be having fun with this. And if you're not, maybe you need that little bit of a check to be like, why are we not doing as well as A, we once did, or B, as these other people that, you know, the Alabamas that you're competing against.
That's a great example. And if you saw that documentary, you understand it.
I didn't.
If you didn't, like Diana didn't, then you're not maybe 100% certain about what we mean. But so, you know, again, there are a lot of parallels to other businesses, although they're not digital content creation. I remember, you know, we had the opportunity in working with and speaking with Alec Bradley Company and Alan Rubin, who is, you know, a guy that I got to know really well. You know, he and I would talk separately, and in their business model, it's Alan, the father, it's Alec, son, Bradley, the son, hence the name Alec Bradley Cigars. Okay. And he and I talk separately about how hard it is to work with your kids, what a gift it is, what a blessing it is, how much it's the best thing in the world to have your family and work with your family, but how hard it is at times because you just can't stop being a dad or a parent first. And that's the piece that you guys will come to learn one day when you become a parent. But being a parent is something that, again, is paramount to everything else. You just can't turn it off. And there are some people that make it look easier than others. And I'll give you an example. Parents that are cool and they hang out and they maybe drink with their kids or they smoke weed with their kids. I know I'm cool. I know I'm cool, but I don't do those things. I don't do. Joe, you think other people you want to hang out with me one time? See? That means Dan, you want to hang out with me?
We pay them. They'll hang out with me too.
Joe, if I didn't pay you, would you want to hang out?
Yeah.
See? Dan, All right, so that's the point. So you're less, other people are less critical, Maybe we should get Joe and Dan to sit on a couch with us.
Right. Well, I ask because like I'm very curious. Like obviously, people think you're very cool. I asked my friend yesterday. I was like, "Do you think?" No, I didn't ask. Do you think my dad's cool?
Yeah, that's a corny thing.
Yeah, like what a question.
It was about like our relationship and perspective of who people think you are. And he was saying how your dad has a cool vibe to him because like he's not a wannabe, try to be cool. Like he's not, let's go and party and check out girls. He is who he is, but he also knows how to get down and have a drink or appreciate, you know, going out. So it's like that combination of, wow, that's a guy that I can emulate, but I don't have to like chase staying 27 forever.
Well, it goes back to, listen, you got to be comfortable with yourself, right? We've talked about this in other podcasts and other scenarios, but the point I guess I want to try to drive home about this context in working with family, especially the dynamic of father, parent, and children, that intensifies. It is just amped up so different than if you two were doing this on your own. If you two were doing this on your own, it's a completely different experience. Well, it's a completely different experience.
I think if Diana just worked for me alone, it would be like the content. It's like the problem, like you said, is it wasn't your pizzeria before this.
Right.
Essentially, I guess you can consider like I started it, but I'm not an expert and you're not an expert. So not there's ever a lack of trust between us, but when we say something, there is like this in the back of our head. Well, how do you know? And that will always create like this sense of uncertainty sometimes, which Diana wouldn't really have that with me. If I said something to Diana, she may give me some pushback, but she's like, all right, I'm going to just listen to him. Whereas you sometimes will give me pushback because
you have to. Well, listen, again, in any scenario where a parent has a chance to educate, protect,
this
insulate,
isn't the chance. Yeah, not here.
Well, that's what happens, and it's hard to turn it off. It's almost like if a parent's not being responsible and they're ignoring that responsibility, well, then that's when they remove themselves and they dismiss themselves from the opportunity and the chance. So if I say I don't care and I walk away and I dismiss it, that's probably because as a parent, I really don't know how to handle it. I don't want to get involved.
Wait, can you give an example? What are you talking about?
So I'll give you an example. So this is what being a parent is. You go bowling and there's gutters. Okay. I let you bowl and you throw the ball in the gutter. First, 5 years old, 6 years, just keep throwing in the gutter. It's frustrating to watch that. Part of that has to happen. You have to throw the ball in the gutter to know that's not the objective. You want to get it down the lane and hit a pin, right? Well, parents today immediately want to throw up the gutter guards. So now, 5 years old, you just throw it down there and it goes bing, 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 and you hit a pin. Okay, great. Now, some would say, but that's the parent's role to be the gutter guards. And I would say, yes, it is. But by the same token, we got to let them feel what it is to be in that proverbial gutter. That's not the object. Roll it, do it again, do it again. So there's two styles here. And if I'm the parent that stands behind you and says, roll it this way, right?
This is funny.
Push it
It
forward,
is.
and it goes, and you think, oh, and now you're starting to get it. Versus the parent who sits back and ignores and says, give me another beer. Give me another beer. Let me have some pizza. And the kids just do gutter ball, gutter ball, gutter ball. Okay. That person, in my mind, isn't being the responsible parent, taking advantage of an opportunity. That's an opportunity to coach, to parent, to lead. And so there's no right ways and wrong ways because it doesn't come with a book of instructions how to be this parent. And you figure this stuff out. So that's my example. Hope that
I have a response to your analogy, and I'm going to give it right after this quick commercial break.
But okay.
And we're back with the John and Drink podcast. Today we're talking about working with family. My dad just gave a very interesting analogy of bowling, and parents are like gutters and kids are throwing balls, parents are the gutter blockers, the gutter guards, and kids are throwing the balls in the gutters and all that good stuff. So he said that, parents can sometimes sit back, let their kids fail, or they can put up the gutter blockers and help them out. I think, again, perspective, I'm curious how Diana feels. There are times that you feel like a parent is playing the role as the gutter guard, which is great, but there's other times where you feel like the parent is taking the ball out of your hand and saying, let me throw it for you. And in those moments, I think you're actually hurting the kid a lot more than you'd think. And from somebody like you, this carries over into like working together. The word micromanage sometimes pops into my mind. And I think that instead of letting your kids and that's the hard dynamic, right? Because in this situation, we're all equals. You're not above me. I'm not above you.
Right.
So there really is no place for you to parent and for me to be the kid. So when you try to parent somebody and do something for them, I think it creates like this animosity. So I'm curious how you feel do you feel like dad has been putting gutter guards up, or do you feel like maybe he's grabbing the ball out of your hands and throwing it down the lane for you?
I don't think he throws it down the lane for us. I think sometimes he's more of the guy that wants to see us not in the gutter, but he wants us to, if we're, he wants us to get to the point where if we're going to fail, then he'll then help us.
So then he can say, and then throw a perfect shot.
Thank you.
And then I'll throw it perfectly.
And then nothing better than when he says, let me do this, and then throws it right.
And gets it on the first try.
There's really nothing better than when dad says, let me do this for you. Gutter ball.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like the funny part about this stuff, right? Because if I didn't know how to fix, the sink that was leaking in my bathroom, and I kept trying and I kept struggling and failing, you would be able to come in and say, let me fix it for you. Let me teach you how. But this, nobody really knows. So if I mess up and I don't know what to do, you really can't come in and say, let me do this for you, because you don't know either, right? We're all making assumptions and learning as we go. Right. So I think it's hard for all of us, because sometimes there are points where you are my dad and I'm used to growing up, and sometimes what you say goes, right? I don't even care if I know I'm right, but in the family dynamic, you're the dad and kids tend to listen, or they should be listening to their parents. I think there is like this hierarchy of a family that a lot of kids nowadays, and I'm not even a kid, I'm an adult, but they overstep and they think they have like this freedom and liberty to do whatever they want to do and say things. I'm still a believer of, I'm 27 years old. My dad tells me in his house to do something, I have to go and do it. But in this business, that's the awkward, like blurred lines of when do we stop becoming your kids and where do we start becoming your coworkers?
Well, I think that's exactly right. There are blurred lines, and it is hard in a family dynamic to have a family business for no matter who you are, right?
Right.
So there's the, the perception and the reality. The perception is everybody loves each other and everything goes real well and smooth. And okay, that's true. But everything doesn't always go well, and things are not as smooth as they may appear. So because anything that's worth something comes with its pains and pitfalls and challenges, right? You've got to grind through and find the things that you want to have as a payout at the end of the day. So, okay, well, listen, this is where the lines do get blurred and things are paralleled. And Diane, I appreciate you saying that about the analogy of the bowling and the gutters. It is hard to watch your kids throw the gutter ball. It is. But if you're a responsible parent and you're there watching, waiting for the opportunity to then put the gutter guards up and or take the ball and show them and throw it with them or for them. Okay, there's a blend of things you can do as a parent to parent, but you have to let them, I believe, experience what it is to fall and fail forward.
Well, I think the point is like, and I'm not saying this is the type of parent you are, but if we're sticking with this analogy here, I think a kid or a human would rather hit a couple pins than watch his or her parents hit all the pins for him. Like that feels way worse. It almost feels like now a sense of dependency on, even if it's a partner or a parent or another person that's in your life, if you constantly feel like anytime I mess up, somebody's going to lash out on me and say, let me just do it for you. That's a place of lack of confidence. Right. Now you're sort of insecure, right. You're defensive, and that's an environment that nobody wants to be in. So it's a hard dynamic, even for us. Like there are things that only because I've been doing it maybe a little bit longer than Diana, that I see Diana do, that I'm like, let me just go and do it myself because I know I can do it better. And the reality is I do have to let her go through the learning of figuring it out and messing up, because she may learn better than I've ever learned, so I take a step back and I really do put trust in the people that I work with, whether it's you two or there's people behind the cameras, or there's people that give us advice on different style of content or maybe different business endeavors that we're involved with. Sure. I think what I do really well is that I put trust in people and I kind of just let them go. But I wanted to ask you the question, how is it different working with us? Like difference between working with your brother, working with your dad, but we're also very different people.
You guys are completely different people in the way that you work. So if I feel like I want to be, depending on the day, if I don't feel like being so like, let's say organized or like have to have like a certain way it has to go, I would just go to you and just be like, that's the good part about working with you, is it could just be any time of day, any time of night, and I could just text you and get an answer. I feel like with you, I have to have more of a structured way of talking about it. And then in my head already knowing like the answer I may get is not what I want to hear. He gives me an answer that is just either something I knew I was gonna hear, or
that's interesting,
something that I would respond.
That's okay.
I don't know if that makes
sense.
Interesting.
So you just touched. No, she just touched on something. In my world, corporate America, whether you want to respect
You're not in that world anymore. Buddy.
No, I know I'm not. But we used to have, because this could be an all day thing, right? People always want to get the answer. They don't want to find the answer. Okay. So in my world, when I'm a leader as a manager and in a responsible place where I'm a decision maker, right? Helping the people that are working with me to figure out what to do. Do I go left or do I go right? They would come and say, do I go left or do I go right? And I would challenge them, because to the point of like when you raise your children, well, if I give you the answer, you'll never figure it out yourself. So rather than giving the answer, I would put back the question. I would put back a question. Well, give me two solutions. You have a question. Now give me two solutions to your question. And if you come prepared with the scenario that suggests, I don't know to go left or right. Well, what are the two options? Yeah, it's not always just left or right. There may be something else that you haven't thought of. So step away from this situation and kind of get your own creative thinking going. That's what I think I hope to do.
You always do that.
With you, right. With you specifically, because you're around me more just physically, because you're in the house, and you are now not as much as you used to.
Lucky you.
Yeah, lucky you. But so anyway, that's where that comes from. I want you to understand that's a lifetime of figuring that out.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest. Exactly that. When you're working in corporate America, you're the manager. You perceivably know more than people that are under you because you've been through it. When they ask you, do you go left or do you go right? You know what the answer is for you because you've been through that. But when we ask questions together, none of us really know. So it's hard for you to continue to play that role, but you're the dad, so you feel like you have to play that role.
Well, it's interesting. I don't have to know the answer to the specific of this, let's say, content or subject matter, but I could tell you how it's going to play out.
That's what you think.
No. I could tell you how it's going to play out. And it's experience that affords me to be able to say that. And so that is one of the more harder things, is to allow it to unfold and then wait when I kind of already know what's going to happen. It's not because there's a crystal ball, and it's not because I know better and I know it all. It's because I've been in scenarios and situations similar countless times over and over and over. And it has as much to do with just working with others in the real world of business, not corporate America necessarily, just working with others. It could be in the pizzeria business. It could be in any sort of self-employed situation that, I may have owned myself at one point. It's truly the path of understanding things aren't so far off of what they may have been the month before, the year before, or 10 years earlier.
That's what we think. I think there's, right. That's our contention, is that you seem to say that a lot. And not that I don't believe it, but I think there are certain things that aren't as correlative as you may seem or you may think. But what I do think the best part about working with family for me, especially you as being the adult, is that you do realize that there's so much more to worry about in life than views, right? Like, so for us, if I'm so obsessive with getting 1 million views every time I post a video, and I feel literally depressed and anxious if I don't do that. And, people that work with other creators, you get it. Like, how stressful this really is. And you walk around life like with such a,
it's hanging over your head.
It's hanging. Not only that, but like it's such a different perception than everybody else has. Everybody else goes through work 9 to 5. You kind of live for the weekend, or maybe you're excited about your job, but you put it to the side when work is over. Whereas if you're obsessive compulsive about doing something certain and then it doesn't happen, that's all you care about. So you are that refresher to take a step back and be like, if we had a flop of a video, your attitude isn't any different. And if we have a crazy big video, your attitude isn't that different. So for us, maybe being a little bit younger, maybe me especially, I can lean on you and say, okay, it's all going to be okay. It's all right.
Yeah, the sun's going to come up tomorrow
because a video didn't do as well as I wanted to.
But also understand, again, the context of the video, or the context of, in my world, the deal. Okay. As a commissioned salesperson, I only get paid if I close a loan or a deal. There's a lot of stress in that. Don't think for a second I didn't feel that pressure.
Oh, definitely not. I'm not saying we're letting people feel it.
But you do as you learn to deal with it, which is, first of all, I'm not going to get every transaction, right? You'll run into streaks where you're going to be told no 10 times in a row, and then things come in bunches. And then you're going to get the next 2 or 3 in a row. The same way you get a video and you get less than favorable views, and they're going to come in bunches. And then all of a sudden, one's going to come out of nowhere and you get 300, 500,000. You keep working and moving forward with that in mind. So it is an age thing. It has less to do with the specifics, content to the business, and just the mindset. You know, and again, I played baseball. So for me, I learned early on that success is measured differently. You fail 70% of the time and you're still a really good baseball player. But you failed the majority of the time. Yep. And so for me, it was always, I got another at bat coming. I got another at bat. I got another chance. There's another game. Same way that this is. There's another opportunity, another brand that's going to come our way, something that when we least expect it. So those are that's the learning curve, I guess, in life as it presents itself. And the sooner you understand and sooner you embrace that, the better off you are psychologically and preparing for your own day and how you start your day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good insight. That's a good analogy. It's like hitting a single or a double is having a good video, and then striking out is kind of is what it is. You get another at bat. For you, because you're really the only person that does this for and with other people. I've worked with other creators from time to time, but it's nothing like what you do. How do you feel about the difference between working with us versus working with what do you think we do? What do you think is harder for you to do because you are family with us, and then vice versa? What's easier for you to do?
Or start with the differences. Start with the differences.
We
you work with other people. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like you already asked me that question. But what do you mean?
You work with us.
Yeah.
There are things that are going to be harder when you work with us versus other brands, and things that are going to be better or easier working with us versus other brands.
That I can close out working with other brands.
Mm-hmm.
My day comes to, I'm cutting my day off at, let's say 6:30, 7 o'clock, and that's it. For you guys, it's very different.
Right.
7 o'clock, say we're eating dinner or I'm on the couch and I forgot to ask something to dad during the day. If it was a brand, I would be like, oh, okay, I'll do that tomorrow. But since he's sitting on the couch, then I bring it up and then it's a whole conversation. Now I'm talking about work at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night when I don't want to be, but I have to be now because
right. And then you crack the door open and that lets me dive right in. We talk for an
terrible.
hour about it. Yeah, you crack the door.
Yeah.
You know how many texts I get? I can't stand him. At least once a week. I'm done.
I said, I'm quitting.
No, because
I'm quitting. I can't stand it. All he does is blah, blah, blah.
Well, because
John,
listen, that is the
stop
challenge.
Exposing me.
No. Oh yeah, you're gonna wait till we do your review. I have to do a yearly review with you.
Guy, man. See, you're not in the corporate. You're not in the corporate
yearly
anymore.
review. See, they don't even know what a yearly review. You guys
about my work.
Yeah, your
about
work
my work
evaluation.
Okay.
They don't even know a yearly
30-day review.
Right.
60.
I don't think I've ever gotten any of that.
Maybe,
But
180 yearly review.
Let's relax.
But that's the I guess that's the bad part about working with family is that it never really shuts off.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it's hard to ever really shut it off because it's very easy to just text you at 9:30 at night or talk to him at 9:30 at night when I don't want to be talking about work, but it is what it is. Okay.
How do you feel when people say to you, you're so lucky, it must be so cool working with your dad and your brother?
I'm like, not really. I hate to say that, but not really.
Oh my God.
It's not that cool.
Why?
It's awesome that I get to work with my family, obviously, and you guys aren't like bosses that are all over me.
We
but
let you come and go as you please.
That's so funny.
I don't know. I don't love it.
Are we tough bosses?
Yeah.
I love when Diane goes, I'm going away for a week. And I'm like, did you put in for time off? She's like, what?
Listen,
I do, but if I ask for time off,
nothing.
I go to him. That's the whole thing.
Not for nothing. In this room, you know who has taken a vacation yet this summer? Me. Everybody else is taking their 2 weeks, 3 weeks off, having a good time.
Yes.
I haven't taken a week off yet.
Oh, listen.
So we're locking it in, people. Everybody in this room.
Maybe no.
No more vacations for another year.
On. Maybe Diane and I will do this podcast by ourselves.
You guys can try.
I don't
See how
think
it goes.
Work.
She goes, I don't think
I
it'll work.
don't think it would work.
No, I just think that's very funny. Like everybody, because you probably get it too, and I get it too. Like,
It is great
oh my
work.
God, it's so
with you
great
guys.
work. Well, here's the reality I think of life. The more you get told how good something is, it's almost like it's not that it's diminishing, but you're almost like very
Critical of it.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
I know how great it is to work with
Mm-hmm.
with you and you, right? Like there are good things about it. Is it the best thing in the world? Is it what other people probably envision it as being? Absolutely not. So I think that's where in the back of your mind, like you said, when somebody says that to me, you have such a great relationship with your dad. It must be so great working with him. Oh, you get to do this, but you're also doing it with your dad. I'm always like, and I never say it, but I'm like, yeah,
No, I shouldn't have said that.
there are things
Probably
that,
not.
what?
Well, it's
That
okay.
I don't mind. That I don't like. It's not
no,
that.
but no,
I
it's
feel
the
like I can
reality.
work. I think it's more the parent thing
Yeah.
Yes.
than
It's
the sibling. I would easily be able to work with one of my siblings just
Yes,
because
me
it's
too.
a sibling.
yeah. Working with the dad,
I get it.
listen, working with
But
parents is hard.
it's
I'm not
hard.
even,
I get it.
anybody that does it, like the only people that get it
Are
are
people
the
that
ones who
do
come up
it.
to me and say, I work with my dad. I totally get it, man. It must
Yeah.
be so stressful sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, the only difference is you work for your dad. My dad works for me. And that's the weird, like,
That dynamic.
if you work for me, then why are you telling me what to do?
Yep.
And if you work for me, why are you always, so
Because
yeah,
because I'm smarter. No, just kidding. You're smarter than me, without a doubt.
no, let's stop.
I'll say it right now. So just to be on, I love working with you guys.
Okay. And
However, it is one of the most frustrating things I could ever have signed up for.
wait, am I,
No.
so here, I have a question
Love
for
working
you.
with you guys. Love you to death. And you will always know where you stand. You will always be protected. You will always have me in front of you to take whatever life throws at you. Okay. But it comes with, again, the baggage of understanding that it's less than ideal.
Wait, I have a question because I just thought about this. You, for those who do not know, my dad was 30 plus years mortgage finance industry, worked at Wells Fargo for a while. Underneath you was your brother. So
Yeah.
what is the difference between working corporate America with your brother versus this?
It's very similar.
Really?
Richard and I used to get along. And again, he was probably one of the best
Mhm.
underneath me, or that reported to me. Okay. Because he had the same work ethic that I had. Right. There was only one guy, coming in earlier or leaving later, and it was him.
Really?
Yep.
Oh.
I think
But I was harder on him. And I would expect more from him. And he and I would get into these things. And one time we came to not fists, but frustration in hands. And
you pushed him in the office?
no, I think I smacked him on the top of his head. He was
No, you
sitting
didn't.
down. Yeah. But that was,
No, you did not.
What?
No,
Yeah.
you didn't.
that was, it
How
was
old
funny.
were you?
We're 50 years old.
No way.
And he got up and he started chasing me, and I was laughing around the whole office because I was running. It was us being brothers. So the problem is,
It's pretty funny.
the problem is he's my brother.
Yeah.
Like you guys are my kids. You can't make that disappear. You can't pretend it doesn't exist. And so when there's times and I need to say something, or maybe would have to like hit somebody between the eyes, he could take it.
Yeah.
I would give it to him. And I would give it to him a little harder than somebody else. And it wasn't fair, but he was the deflection. He was the guy who was going to get it. And I think if you were to ask him, he would understand that. But he would also say that it was not easy working for his brother or with his brother for the same reasons.
Yeah. Do you think he ever tried to overstep? Like the difference between, because again, these are blurred roles that we have as this like business. Is like if you want to say I'm, whatever director, you're talent, she's man. We all kind of do all the same shit,
Right.
or we all are that role at one point. Sometimes you're directing some whatever. Do you ever feel like he overstepped his role?
No,
Or he knew.
he always knew
the
his role.
difference,
He was because the difference is he never aspired
right.
to truly go to and let's say be at another level. He accepted really well where he was, doing well, making money, and taking the benefits of whatever I might introduce or afford him to have, right? Because I did train him from zero. He knew nothing. So that was like, again, the guy owns the pizzeria and you coming in and I'm going to teach you how to make pizza. So the dynamic was different. But today, he's a leader. Today he has his own team that he's building out. And I can carve out example after example of people that used to work with me that were reporting to me that today have their own shops and have people reporting to them. And the way they learned to do that in part was because they saw us do it at one level at a time earlier. So this whole dynamic thing of what you're talking about working with family, yeah, I've done it before.
But here's the difference, I think. Well, there's a lot of differences. Did it make it easier that there were other non-family members around?
Absolutely.
So I think that's the big, like when it's us three talking, it does get very, what are we even arguing about type of thing? Because we are family, we're like going off the tangent. But when people like Joe and Dan are here, it does feel a little more legitimate and we put our best hats on. You know what I mean? Like because now I'm not managing you guys. I have to now manage these people and make sure they know that I'm the right guy for the job.
Yeah.
And they're not family, so that's not built in for them.
But listen, you are the leader in this hierarchy of things. You are. And so maybe that's why Dad gets a little bit more critical of some of the things that are optics. Okay. That's probably why, the optics of things. If you're the leader, I have this thing, and I believe through many a successful business, there are people in that position that need to act and look and consistently demonstrate who they are, who they're supposed to be. And I have a lot of friends at this age, even today, that are less than professional, that act unbecoming. They're fun people, don't get me wrong. Want to hang out? You want to laugh? All day long. But now when I think about it, well, do I want to do business with that person? Maybe not. Because I see how they hang out and socialize and excessively do and say things and lie to their kids, to their wives. So you understand that this, again, is the age thing coming into play, but people are always watching. People will always pass judgment. It doesn't mean it's right or it's wrong. They will always assess you. If you have a repair that needs to be done at your house and there's two contractors, one pulls up clean, polished, nice, brand new Mercedes, I don't know, whatever, beautiful car, you might be like, wow, this guy does really well. And maybe that's a good thing. But if I'm doing work on my house, maybe I want the guy who's got a pickup truck, who's clean, who's got boots, who has a tape measure, and he's ready to go. Like, I don't know, there's an evaluation going on there, and vice versa. When you live in the nice neighborhood and maybe someone's coming to give you an estimate, their mind might change based on the neighborhood. Oh, they can afford it, so I'll charge a little bit more. You'll see that these things, those are the optics. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. All I'm saying to you, it's real, and it's something that is continuously going to put itself in front of you, and how you choose to deal with it is up to you.
Well, okay, then that's where I think it gets tricky, because if you just, I mean, you said, not me, that I'm the leader of this, I'm the boss, whatever. Mm-hmm. But you also have a lot to, you would be doing it differently if you were the boss, or you'd think you'd be doing it differently if you were the boss. And I think that's where you had this hard time accepting certain things. I'm not going to change at this point in my life. And I think that's where.
No, you're going to change.
No, probably not.
No, you know why you're going to change? You're going, not because I'm telling you you're going to change.
Everybody changes. I'm saying, right, I'm not going to change because you told me to change.
You're right, but you will change. You will look back when you're 30, 40, and you'll be like, I can't believe I used to do that. I do it now.
That's not what I meant.
We all
sure. If my beliefs don't align with your beliefs and you tell me, hey, you should be doing this, it doesn't matter. It's not my belief. And so I think that's where we're always going to have this back and forth between, because I'm never going to be what you would be. And that's the issue of a dad working for a son, versus if it was your pizzeria, and we go back to this, and you said, everybody has to wear this,
Mhm.
I would have to wear that. It doesn't
Right.
matter if that's my style or that's how I want to present myself.
Right.
I am working for you.
Well, but so it's interesting. So, dress code. And you can say corporate America, you can say America in general. Dress code's changed.
Yeah.
And when it's dress code, it doesn't have to be something that's written out. But there is a time when you wouldn't go into New York City in anything less than a suit. You wouldn't go out to a nice restaurant in anything less than a jacket.
So what?
Today,
It's definitely
the suit,
changed.
the attire has lost a lot of what I think is a little bit of a disappointment. That the entirety of our dress code as a society has changed.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't have to like it. You can like it. You can enjoy it. But it is cyclical. It will come and turn back around again. And that's why I say one day, it will change again.
No, of course I will change.
You will change and
yes.
evolve into a different person. And you'll say, wow, I can't believe I used to act like that or I used to do that.
Correct. But it's not going to change on somebody else's accord.
Nope.
Like you are who you are type of thing. And that's not what, the dress code thing is irrelative to us because we don't have dress code.
No, you do have a dress code. This is your dress code.
We don't though. I would never tell you what to wear and I'll tell you what to wear.
No, we don't have it as a
boss. I would never do that to you guys.
I understand that.
Thank
but you have your own code by which you want to carry yourself. And again, back to the optics about how you want people to perceive you.
Sure. But we're just talking about us as the family dynamic. Like,
Mhm.
You'd be dressing differently if you were 27 years old. So you think that you should be telling me, hey, you should be dressing different.
Oh, no, I don't know that I get too hung up in that. I just think, no, I think that I need a venue, right? So give me a venue like we do. Hey, I'm going on an interview. How should I dress? Well, there's a certain way. I'm going to dinner. How should I dress? Those venues of where you go matter.
Here's the point though. In this situation, this business, you're not my dad.
Right.
So you shouldn't walk in and say, you're really going to wear that? Or you should be wearing this because that's not your place.
No, it may not be my place.
Right. That's where the blurred lines are.
No, understood that. I understand that. But what you're not following with what I'm trying to say, and maybe I'm not saying it correctly, is if this is a context of something we want to convey to our audience, we should be consistent in that and nothing else.
We are who we are. That's what I want to convey.
We are who we are
Right.
is true. But in saying that casually, it also gives like a little bit of an excuse of saying what we've talked about before is, well, I don't care.
No, that has nothing to do with not caring.
Okay.
We of course care. But I'm not going to now, because you wear collared shirts, wear collared shirts.
I don't expect you to wear a collared shirt.
But that's my point is I think that's where the blurred lines come from. And I'm not blaming you for this. I think that's where it gets really hard is that you're my dad, but then when you're supposed to turn that off and say, he's my boss, I got to let him do what he wants and tell me what to do. It's very hard.
Yeah. Listen, I think there's a lot of other things we can kind of talk about and spin off into different directions. I just hope today that in talking about running and being involved in a family business, it brought to light some things that are common threads.
Yeah, I'd be very curious
with a lot of other people that are potentially either considering to do it or already doing it.
Like the success, like I would consider ourselves very successful in the space of father-son creators, right? There's only a handful of other people that are doing it as well, if not better than us. And I can name them. I'm very curious to hear like the McFarlands would be like the one family I see all the time, or like Two Turn Tony has done it really well with his family, or Joe Melly and his dad, or Jet Bentley and his
I'm sure they're going
like, I wonder how
their
dynamic is, because they're all dealing with the same thing where like the sons grew up in the content creation world. They went viral. They realized their dads were part of the reasons of them going viral. So they got them involved. They created this character. I wonder what that conversation looks like.
I'm sure it's very similar. I'm sure it's very similar. I think it's impossible to believe that who they are on whatever context that they're portraying on camera is exactly how they are off camera. It's impossible.
Well, I will say that the one common thread that I see out of all those father and sons is that there seems to be a very accepting and just like I'll do whatever my son wants me to do because I'm having a lot of fun doing something with him.
I would tend to agree. Right. Joe and his son.
That guy gets his dad to do anything.
Yeah. And you don't think.
And his dad, he says it in camera. He says it on camera. He's like, I'm not doing this shit. And like that, you can tell he has such a good time with that stuff.
I believe that's real.
Yes, 100%.
And I think then they've learned to play on that, similar to where you found things to play on that bother me. Right. And so you throw the glass over my head and it's going to break behind me or something, that bothers me. Right. So you keep doing it.
Yeah, I wake you up.
Or you stir the ice and there's no ice in there and you make the noise and that bothers me. Of course it bothers me.
Or wake you up.
Wake you up.
Wake me up.
Classic.
That's a classic one.
Right. Those are real things you play on. So that's probably in large part what they go through, the same kinds of things.
I'd be curious. We got to get some of them on the podcast. Last questions for you guys. If I'll ask you first, if we weren't your family, would you continue to work for us?
Yeah, because
we get paid.
Yeah, I get paid well, and the work is not that hard.
You think it'd be easier or harder if you weren't a sibling?
Harder, because I wouldn't have an understanding for the way you guys work. Like you guys work very differently. I feel like as an outsider, like it must be. I mean, now I feel like they're in it for a long time, so they understand you guys. But coming in, like it would be very. Like
it is a shock. Anyone that's new that works for us
it's a culture shock for people to work with you guys and be like, this is how they
like
actually operate.
Like, if they brought like the dudes that you had to bring the one time, we're probably like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, like what is going on?
Now, question you. I guess in this situation, I'm your boss. Would you quit? And then in reverse, if you were my boss, would you fire me?
I wouldn't fire you, and I would sign up for this all day long. What I would know would be different is. If I wasn't your father and you were young people, you would be all ears, all eyes, and you would suck this up. You would take everything that I say and you would give consideration to doing it and or figuring out a way to do it better. That I'm positive about that because it's what you want at a young age. Everyone wants it. I wanted it. We talked about this in the mentor and the protege conversation. Well, where do you go find a mentor? Well, sometimes the mentor just shows up. Yep. When do you become a mentor? Well, sometimes it just happens and all of a sudden you are. If we didn't have this relationship, you guys would work with me, you guys would be like, I'm in. This is great. I've got alignment with a senior savvy person who's obviously done whatever. And I want that. Tell me how to do that. Right? So the difference is you've heard my voice since, a very young age and maybe tired of hearing it.
Would you fire me if I was working for you?
No, I would take you and you are a huge, I know how hard you work. You're a huge upside and someone that if you were working, let's take me out of this for a second. You worked for somebody else, they would brag about you. And you too. I mean, you both are very hard-working individuals and have a great skill set. You are a nugget and an opportunity for anyone to grab and take hold of, and sky's the limit. So I wouldn't, have any problem or reservation about doing that. I wish sometimes we could separate those lines, but we can't because we're blood.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess I'll ask myself the question. Like you two.
You would never fire me.
No, I wouldn't fire you. I would probably, I'm trying to think if I would demand more or less from you. I would probably demand more from you, but I would do it in a little bit of a nicer way.
Like what?
Like I'll text you on like a Saturday night and say, you have to do this right now. I wouldn't do that, but I would maybe like
that's where I'm saying like if I wasn't working for you, you like, I don't think it's right when you text someone at 10:30 at night on a Saturday night.
Well, here's the thing. I'll text Dan a Saturday night.
I know you do.
And Dan
but like
knows.
that's just because like now they're used to working with you, and that's just the way that you work, and like that's fine because I feel like that's the industry that we're in.
There's people worse than me.
Yeah, like no, but I feel like that is the industry that we're in. Like it never shuts off, which is like that's the bad part about it. But I don't know what more you would demand.
You got to remember, there's a time zone difference. East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah, so you're fine. We work all.
Yeah, well, he works all through the night.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I would definitely not fire you.
He's on West Coast time.
I would keep you around, for sure. No, I think you're a really good worker. You're actually honestly, I don't give you a lot of work because I almost feel like this sense of like that's where the guilt comes in, where you're family, so I don't want to give you too much of stuff that I don't.
Yeah,
want
like
to do.
I feel like you don't give me that much work, and
So
I'm asking
yeah.
you for work.
Yes,
he gives me. I feel like more work to just like gives me
keep
work.
yourself busy, which is ridiculous. Yeah,
Yeah.
Like
But,
I would give.
I feel like I could have more roles and be able to do them and not really ever have to complain about it.
And the same thing, like, yes, that's one thing about family. Like, I feel like I hold back on what I give you to do because I almost feel like this guilt where it steps in. You're my sister. I don't want you to do too much. So, yes, I would keep you, but I would also probably give you more work. You, on the other hand, if
Promotion?
if you were not my dad and we had this really cool thing going where maybe, again, I happen to like work for you. I'm just thinking about maybe I was your caddy and we worked out really well together. We started this like
You were my caddy.
dynamic of, only for so long. I think you're 100% right. I would definitely idolize you differently and not have so many contention towards you of like, you're not always right. I would hold back a lot of what I say to you. So I would think all the same things. I would say, well, he's wrong with that, but I'm not holding it back as opposed to just me just saying it to you. I do genuinely now. I try to literally say to myself, that's not my dad. That's just like a guy. And the reason I do that in this situation is because I do think there has to be a separation where I give a lot of guys credit that are older than me and I try to learn from them just because they're adults that are successful. And I think it would create an easier environment for us to live in if it wasn't a father, son, sister. So
understood.
Yeah.
The challenges, the pleasures, the ups and downs of working in a family business, they exist, they're real, and I think it's normal. If you're in that situation, you're working in a family business, you're going to go through these challenges and struggles sometimes. But at the end of the day, you can't trust, you can't align yourself, you can't be more satisfied and proud of when you step away to think, wow, look what we accomplished. Look what we did as a family.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very exciting for the future. So that's it for today, guys. Like, subscribe, share. But if you work with your family, I'm very curious, actually. Comment below and share your experience. That's it for today. Cheers.
Bye.